Hello and welcome to our Lakeside chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corinna Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segura Te Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And so this is a place that my ancestors have been since the beginning of time. And this was a place of abundance. I'm so happy that people from all walks of life that now come into our territory can enjoy this beautiful place that my ancestors have enjoyed since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
Thank you, Corinna, and thank you everyone for being here. We want to honor all of the young people out there who are graduating and moving on to a new chapter in their education and lives. I'm Katie Noonan, one of the co-chairs of Rotary Nature Center Friends. And as we begin, we wanted to share a short video presentation with some comments from our people that are our former students who did science work here at Lake Merritt. So meeting here and reminiscing about the old days and going down memory lane. So Kevin, what does this bring to mind, being here in 2022 and looking at Lake Merritt?
Well, being back at the Sailboat House, where we took so much data over the years with our young scholars, going back over 25 years now, measuring just some basic things like salinity and temperature and keeping baseline data for Lake Merritt and for San Francisco Bay, and giving students a hands-on real science experience is actually really important. Very close to my heart, and makes me feel great to be back here, and so glad to hear about the Rotary Nature Center friends that are keeping the ball rolling, with keeping science live here on Lake Merritt. Really warms my heart. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Kevin. So that was Kevin Jordan, one of the founders of the Environmental Science Academy. It began in 1997 at Lake Merritt. So we brought together some of the students who went through that program and did science at Lake Merritt, and we'd like to share that with you. So welcome, everybody. In traveling down memory lane, we are talking about how our project that began in 1997 developed some unique and wonderful characteristics over the years. And we have some of our former students here to tell you a little bit about their experience. So here we have a poster that was made to show our program back in 2007 or 2008. And we're going to hear now from Amanda to talk about how this program was a different kind of science class compared to ones you may be familiar with. Amanda?
So hi, I'm Amanda. I'm from class of 2014. I'm currently an environmental scientist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, reviewing and permitting timber harvest plans in the Bay Delta region. So with ESA, it started me off with water quality data collection, and that data collection was integral to assessing overall trends, short-term versus long-term trends, and data collection for my position and in general is such an integral part of understanding what resource you're managing, and as well as developing objectives to apply for that resource management.
Wow. That's just wonderful that you're carrying on. You're doing so much for the environment in your post-ESA years. And I really enjoyed seeing you at the lake a few months ago doing water quality. Everybody, you just remembered right off the bat how to do it all. Another of our students from the class of 2012 is Ismael Chavira. And I'm going to advance a couple slides right now. So here we are at the lake, getting our hands wet, exploring, testing the water, as Amanda just mentioned. And here, Ismael, what are we doing?
My name is Ismael Chavira. I'm from class of 2012. I'm currently an environmental compliance specialist with the Belshire Environmental. And I would say that this class, was a really important part in me pursuing the environmental field. So like I said, you were saying here, in particular, we were using, different apparatuses, and this one in particular, we're using the Secudis to see clarity in water. So we would go in the pontoon boats and we would drop them down and see what the clarity measurements would be. So like I said, it was a very hands-on class, especially using these tools. And like I said, we would see pretty much the effects of urban runoff in Lake Merritt. It being a watershed, like I said, a lot of the materials, especially like after rainy days, there's a lot of materials that end up going into the water and affect the clarity, the self-oxygen levels of Lake Merritt. So we got to experience and see the effects of, like I said, urban runoff.
And when you were a senior, you had a special project related to watersheds. Did you not?
I did actually. Yeah, I did. So I was part of this program called the Watershed Ambassadors. And what we did in that program was that we would go to local businesses and just kind of let them know like the effects of urban runoff and why it's important not to, throw trash away into the storm drains and how that affect the local watershed and fish population. That was a pretty good program. It was through ESA, and like I said, it was cool because we got, not only did we were able to talk to our local community, but we were also we were able to speak to them and just be stewards and just let them know why why it's important. And the cool part of this program was that people who were compliant with our requirements, which were not throwing trash in the storm drain, they would get a sticker saying that they were part of this program. And when we came back to talk to them, they were saying that a lot of people actually shopped with them because they saw those stickers on their window in the front door. So like I said, it seems like people were looking for businesses that were actually environmentally friendly, which was, I think in my opinion, was super cool.
Very cool. So Ismael, you completed college programs in environmental science, right?
I did. So I went to Sacramento State, got a bachelor's in environmental science. I was also part of this program called, let's see here. There was two. It was one with environmental. It's called the Sierra Nevada Journey, which was teaching earth science to kids in rural areas, which was pretty cool because, like I said, it just kind of reminded me of college and how we were being taught earth science, and then the page turns and we're the ones teaching it now. And the other one was it was a composting program with Sac State, and what we did there was we learned composting, and we used that compost actually to plant food, which was actually used to feed. Unfortunately, there's a homeless population of students in Sacramento State, but we would use that compost to create programs that would give food for with students that didn't have a home.
That is just wonderful. Thank you so much for telling us about all the places that you have been with your interest in environmental studies and environmental justice. In our program, we focused on local data collection, and as a resource, an educational resource at hand, and it proved to be really rich. So here we have Christina McGee, and she is also with us today. Christina, could you say something about your ESA experience and collecting data, and about yourself?
Hi, I'm Christina McGee. I am class of 2008. with ESA. I'm currently a teacher at Madison Park Academy. I teach biology and now a new environmental studies elective class. So one of the greatest things that I remember from ESA was how much we worked in collaborative groups, and data collection was a huge part of the work that we did. So this is an image, I believe, of Diamond Park, where we were doing a restoration project, and we were we were planting native species after doing some invasive species removal, and we were trying to plot where exactly all these plants were to assess how successful our restoration project was. I don't remember the data, but I want to say we had a good like 75% of our plants got to survive after that project. And I believe that that was at least a few weeks of us out there working together, doing all the planting. So focused real on native species. We learned a whole lot about invasive species removal, and the data informed how we did our plantings in the future.
That is great. And there is a plaque up there in Diamond Park acknowledging the work that your class and a few other classes did there in Diamond Park. Thanks so much for sharing about that. And you want to tell us a little bit about your you've done many things in environmental science in particular. You've had many environmental careers already, and I should mention that you are the recipient of a special award for environmental stewardship and education by the Rose Foundation.
Yes, thank you. So ESA, right? In addition to all the cool stuff we did, I actually really fell in love with the water work that we did, the water quality testing and the Secchi dips and going into the boats and doing the water quality. That was my jam. And I ended up going to Santa Cruz and got my degree in environmental studies. They didn't have science back then. But yeah, I worked for a lot of environmental education nonprofits, learned about how to teach this important work to students, and realized that this is kind of at its essence project-based learning, and that's something that you don't see in every school every day. It's really hard to do, as I'm still learning myself as an educator, but it's something that I bring into my classes. So you'll see a future slide, and those are actually some of my students that we brought to that conference for them to check out. I think the last thing I wanted to add was this idea of environmental justice is rooted in, or what was a huge focus in ESA, even if it wasn't explicitly stated. We work with a lot of nonprofits that had people of color, and that was kind of the first time where I'm actually seeing and working with people that look like me, and realizing that I had a place in the environmental movement. And that was really powerful for me. It's something that I really love to share with my students.
Thank you so much, Christina. Let's move on to a few more slides. So here, this is one of the slides that we made to share with the community about water quality, water temperature. And the students wanted to know if the temperature was rising because they had heard about global warming. It's a great exercise in looking at data and realizing that at that point, there's many complexities in evaluating what's going on with climate. And here are some students enjoying sharing their work. Here is a slide showing our work on the dissolved oxygen and the tidal range in Lake Merritt during the city's Measure DD channel improvements. And here is a slide showing the final uploading of our 20 years of data to the CEDN website. We also looked at organisms that were found at Lake Merritt. Lake Merritt is a saltwater, brackish water tidal lagoon. affording a great opportunity to look at a variety of organisms that live here and to think about the processes that are changing those communities as we proceed with global warming. And so we presented a poster about that at the State of the Estuary Conference. We also had have a underwater robotic vehicle program and involved students both as interns and as classes in that. And here is our illustrious team. And here's the slide that Christina referred to with her students now coming to show off their data, and they're taking a look at their generation's contribution to our understanding of the lake environment and environment in general. Okay, so next we have we got involved with planting plants that were native at along the shoreline of the channel. And so again, following the theme of learning by doing science, we did a restoration project to see where different species would survive on the shores of the newly created salt marsh. Now we're going to turn to one of the aspects of our program that we made available to all students, and that is the opportunity to explore outside of Oakland. And we worked very closely with the Sierra Club on all of our trips. And one of our students has continued his connection with the Sierra Club and with the outdoor exploration process, and that's Malcolm. Malcolm, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, well, tell us a bit about your ESA experience and the science of awe.
Well, with my experience with ESA, well, one thing I really appreciate about ESA is that it really helped me, and like a lot of my other classmates helped us like get out and actually experience some of the things that we were learning about, and like pretty much get accustomed to being outside and seeing firsthand what's really just going on in our world, you know. And being a part of the Sierra Club and dealing with ICO, which is the organization that helps us, like the rafting organization, that being a part of that just really helped me, for one, you know, experience all of that.
So who do you connect with when you're doing your rafting trips? Who goes on the rafting trips?
So with the rafting trips, we take out a lot of pretty much a lot of students who wouldn't, well, not just students, but like really anybody or any organization who really doesn't have the ability to go rafting or do like these kinds of trips on a normal basis, or like people who live within like the city.
Great. And as I recall, Malcolm, you were one of our Ocean Sciences Bowl team members for a number of years, and that was really fun. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
That was great. Here we see a slide that sums up the hope and the observation that many of our students went on to take care of the environment and to become professionals. And I would like to ask Tiffany if she could say something about her experience in ESA and some thoughts about the program and its role in preparing people to deal with the future.
Yeah, so I am Tiffany Louie. It was the ESA class of 2004. Being in the Environmental Science Academy definitely made a huge impact on me kind of when I was young and not sure about what I wanted to do with my life. But the Environmental Science Academy definitely instilled a lifelong love of the environment and the outdoors into me. And that kind of definitely influenced, you know, my career path going forward from there. Not just the science classes that we did and all the kind of science aspects of the academy, but also the overnight field trips. You know, as Malcolm mentioned, we did a lot of overnight rafting trips, but we also did other kind of hiking and camping trips. And I feel like all those camping trips were also very essential to kind of showing us this environment that, you know, surrounds us, and kind of instilling a love of the environment into us, and then making us want to kind of like care for that environment and like kind of preserve it so that we can continue to enjoy it as we do on those field trips. So yeah, it definitely influenced my career path. I went to UC Davis as an undergraduate. I didn't major in an environmental field, but I ended up majoring in microbiology. But I definitely kind of found a way of kind of turning it kind of environmental. I ended up studying the microbial biodegradation of environmental pollutants as an undergraduate, but also I went on to do I continued to do research in biodegradation of environmental contaminants. After I graduated from UC Davis, I worked at Berkeley for a couple of years and continued with that biodegradation aspect. And then I went on further to Rutgers to do a PhD, also in microbiology, but I also studied like biodegradation and dehalogenation, which is also beneficial to, you know, preserving and kind of trying to improve our environment. Yeah, so I'm currently an associate scientist in a therapeutic drug company, so it's not super related to the environment, but like my path along the way was definitely very heavily influenced from my time in the Environmental Science Academy.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I had the privilege of going to Tiffany's defense this year, and I was absolutely blown away because here was a woman who I taught the Krebs cycle to back in the day, and she did such an incredible job of explaining it to people who may not have been on top of it, really, and making it just really interesting, and it's such a great contribution to our understanding of the microbial world, which is really important in understanding and conserving and stewarding our environment. So just in awe of what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, science classes at Lake Merritt definitely kind of started that, because I remember, you know, taking water samples and looking at those samples under the microscope and then seeing all these tiny little creatures moving around under the microscope. So that definitely kind of, all started there.
Well, we had a lot of fun. Tell us about your experience in ESA and what your takeaways were from that experience.
Sure, Katie. Hi, everyone. So when I was a freshman in high school, I originally joined the Environmental Science Academy at Oakland High because I heard that they went on fantastic field trips. And yes, that is true. But little did I know that this would be life-changing for me. Katie and Kevin took us on all these amazing field trips, whitewater rafting down the Kings River, college tours, doing service learning work at Diamond Park and at Saucil Creek. And all of these experiences, I found myself in absolute awe of nature. And I thought to myself, how do I get a job where I get to be outside all the time? And that led me to a career in environmental conservation, habitat restoration, and working for conservation organizations all across the Bay Area once I came back from college. And currently, I am an ecologist with East Bay Regional Park District, and the kind of work, especially the kind of service learning work that we did, as well as the water quality testing and monitoring that we did at Lake Merritt, definitely helped me in college lab coursework. And that kind of sampling is similar to the kinds of sampling that I use today in my job, about 10 years into my career. So the kinds of experiences that the Environmental Science Academy has provided for Oakland students is absolutely amazing. And I can say from personal experience, life-changing.
Motto of the Environmental Science Academy, that everyone will be an environmentalist in the future, has actually come out to be true. Every citizen now really is starting to think about, what is my footprint and what are the consequences of what I'm doing today? How is that going to be for my kids in the next generation? So it's a fantastic thing, and so glad to be back here at Lake Merritt Sailboat House.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we're really excited to present some educators from UC Berkeley, Lawrence Hall of Science, who are continuing this idea of involving young people in learning and doing real science. And so we're going to turn our program over to our speakers.
Yeah, my name is Kevin Cuff, and I'm the founding director of the program which we're featuring today, which is called East Bay Academy for Young Scientists, or EBAYS. And I'm here with two of my colleagues, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So, Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen Sutherland. I am one of the public program specialists and also the program coordinator for EBAYS. So we're very excited to be here tonight and share with you some of the work that we're doing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pinky. I am also a public program specialist at the Lawrence Hall of Science. I'm also a geologist by trade, so I'm familiar with a lot of like the environmental environmental career things that folks are talking about in the last video. So it's very exciting to share this work with people who are similarly interested in this type of work. Also, Kevin, I am the tech operator, so let me know if you need me to switch slides.
Great. I think we can go to the next slide. So, as was mentioned earlier, EBAYS is based at UC Berkeley's Lawrence Hall of Science, and actually EBAYS is a group that designs, presents, and assesses science programming. A key feature of all EBAYS programming is authentic community science research projects. And we include those because they provide opportunities for youth to generate information useful in addressing environmental health issues. And one of the reasons why that's the case is because I too am a geologist by training. So environmental issues are very important to me, and I think they're important to everyone in our community, but certainly they titillate the students that we work with. EBAYS has been in existence for about 15 years or so, and during that time we've had youth participate in numerous air, water, and soil quality studies. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. We've actually, during that time, we've worked with many, many schools in Oakland and many other organizations. At one point in time, we worked with the Environmental Science Academy with Katie many years ago, and we've worked with other community-based organizations that are interested in the environment and also interested in just addressing social and environmental justice issues. In addition to helping youth develop and hone science practice skills, learning how to do science by doing it, actually, a key outcome that we strive for is the development of skills and dispositions that enable the youth to contribute to the growth and development of their communities. So we try to sort of bridge the gap between science and other pertinent community-based issues that are important to everyone in our collective community. One of the key elements in the work that we're doing is helping students to develop what we call scientific agency or science agency. And the way that we define science agency is it's a combination of things. It's a combination of self-efficacy, like how confident students feel that they are at doing science, and science identity, which is how they view themselves now as a scientist as opposed to prior to working with us. And also something we call value of science. Like we hope that through participating in community-based research projects that youth will start to see that science is very valuable, not as something that's abstract and only for a certain group of people, but something that can be useful in addressing real world issues. So that, in a nutshell, is what EBAYS is all about. And now we'll talk about some particular program components and work that we've done throughout the history of the project. Next slide.
So one of the things that we do to kind of bridge that gap between activism or like civic responsibility and science and data is to provide evidence for some of the big pressing issues that are present in the community. So we're wondering if folks could just pop their answer into the chat. Tell us what community you live in, and then tell us what do you think are, you can give me 1 to 3 main sources of pollution in your community. So take a second, think about pollution in your community, and give us a couple that you think might be the main sources. I'm seeing a lot of different types of pollution that people are thinking about. It just goes to show you how complicated this issue can be. What we're going to do is see if your answers, how we can figure out the answer to what you think, you may have noticed with your senses, or you might have, talked with other people about what you noticed about pollutants in your area. So one of the things that we do in our program is try and figure out, okay, so we think these things may be true. Maybe you already know they're true. What can we do to back up what we're already thinking about? So one way that we do this is through something called CalEnviroScreen, which folks may already be familiar with. Pinky was very nicely went and put that link in the chat if you do want to check it out for yourself. But one of the main things that I'm seeing from folks in all around the Bay is cars and exhaust. So one of the things that we look at is diesel particulate matter, which is pollution that comes from diesel-powered engines. Which is only one part of that that aspect. But you can see in these areas in the Bay, you can actually zoom in and you can look at like, okay, so I live around Lake Merritt, say, I can look at how bad the diesel particulate matter is in my area. So if I lived in this area, my diesel pollution percentile that I experience is in the 98th percentile for the entire state of California. So that's super high, and that's something that we can then take that information and think about how can we study this more? How can we make changes based on this? So we're not only using data that has previously been collected, but also thinking about new ways that we can add to that. So I did notice, I just want to show you one other one that folks mentioned. Some folks were mentioning, let me just scooch this over. Trash. So some places, this doesn't have a great amount of actual just like trash in the streets data, but it does have some data on where the solid waste areas are, where places go that will, I see someone talking about trash pickup days, where all that trash goes and where it lives in a landfill. So that's one of the things that we do to kind of bridge that gap between you're learning about this, what does it mean for you? Awesome. And Pinky did put that link in the chat if you want to go and check it out for yourself. There's all sorts of different things that you can look at. So on the next slide, you'll see that we offer a variety of programs. One of the big things that we do is building basic science practices. So we're thinking about how do you make observations? How do you talk about data in a way that is accessible to people, as well as thinking about systems. So just because we see trash in the lake doesn't necessarily mean, what other parts of the environment is that affecting? So thinking beyond what you're just seeing right in front of you and expanding into thinking about the system as a whole, which also encompasses sustainability. If you can go to the next slide, Pinky. One of the other main things that we study is air quality. So students will take these little air monitors, you can see them using. They are called air beam devices, and they will collect data that about PM 2.5 and PM 10, two different sizes of air pollution particulate matter. And we'll collect data on that and process that, as well as lead contamination, which is on the next slide. So part of our programs focus on collecting soil samples around the Bay Area and testing them for contaminants like lead or arsenic. And so you can see students here with a big bucket of samples they've collected. And this device right here that this student is holding is called an XRF device. And it's a scientific tool that shoots X-rays into the soil and then reads it back and tells you what types of elements are in your soil. So the students can use that to start to think about, okay, what am I seeing in this soil, whether it's at a park where there are a lot of youth who play, or it's at their homes, starting to get that real world experience and real connecting into their communities. And what do we do with all that information? On the next slide, you will see this is one aspect of what students do with their information. This is a map of lead levels that students have collected and analyzed. And so you can see the full link I can put in the chat so that you can play around with it yourself if you want to. So these different dots are showing places where students have been over the past several years to collect soil data. And you can see we've concentrated pretty heavily in East Oakland because we know that there's a challenge, a problem with lead there, but we're expanding throughout the Bay as well. And we can use this analysis and this data to say, yes, there is a problem. What are we going to do about it? And to kind of focus on using that data to create social change. And that students do that through their student-led action projects. So if you can go to the next slide, Pinky, thank you. These are just a couple of different examples of things that students have done with their data to try and create change. So we have students who've presented at professional science conferences. This is students at the American Geophysics Union Conference. Students have taught classes down here at the bottom with the information that they've learned and their findings. And then over here on the left is from some work that we did with students actually in Flint, Michigan, looking at the air and soil contaminations there. And they created this informational flyer and handed it out throughout the neighborhood and talked to community members about what they found and what it meant for them. So that is the general EBAYS programming in a nutshell. There are a lot of different aspects, but it's a lot of hands-on work and creating something at the end to help create change. And I think Kevin can talk about what that actually means for us.
Thank you, Colleen. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're charged with is assessing our programming and determining how effective and impactful it is. I just wanted to share some recent results that we have obtained through a study that we conducted, a mixed method study that we conducted with approximately 365 participants whose backgrounds are very representative of Oakland's general population. And this study showed that participation in community science research activities, such as the ones that were just described, that such participation can lead to statistically significant increases in youth perception of the value of science as a useful tool in addressing community-related problems. So now there's students who participated in this now see that science is more valuable than they had thought previously. In addition, we've also seen that there are increases in the belief that students have in themselves as being science practitioners, not only in learning contexts, but also in terms of community application contexts. In addition, we have found that students, through participation in the program, that their engagement in community research activities can increase the extent to which they view science as part of their identity, which I think is really important. They now see that they're stronger and more scientific thinkers as opposed to what they were originally. And also, we've seen changes in the degree to which students view themselves as capable and responsible citizens who can now affect change in their communities. So altogether, these results pretty much support a really important assertion that we're trying to make, and that is that community science research activities and activities similar to what Katie's group has done for many, many years. We'd like to support the assertion that more of this should be done in schools, and that most schools should include this in their curricula. So the data that we're generating is helping us to make a stronger case for broader inclusion in community science research activities.
So this summer, we'll be taking our environmental monitoring program over to Lake Merritt for the first time. And we're really interested in working at Lake Merritt for several reasons. One big one is that it's centrally located in Oakland and it's important to the community. So we can collect data to track changes and bring awareness. The youth can continue preservation efforts that have already been going on and bring even more youth in. As you can see, and I'm sure if you're here on this talk, you already know about the abundance of wildlife in the area that will be affected by some of this environmental change. And there's also a big availability of historical data from the Lake Merritt Institute, from governmental institutions that will help us build on the work that others have done and contribute to that as well. One of the other big reasons that we wanted to work at Lake Merritt is because it is in an urban environment. And so, I see someone asking what creature is that? And it's a sea, I forget the exact name. It's a type of slug, but I can't remember the exact name of it. A sea hare, I want to say. Oh, good. Okay, great. Someone backed that up. Yes, the sea hare. Which I guess are not that uncommon. So one of the big reasons that we're interested in Lake Merritt is that it is in an urban environment. And so, I'm sure you're all familiar with the fact that, especially after storms, there can be a lot of trash in the lake. There are more than 62 storm drains that go into Lake Merritt, and that includes urban runoff from more than 7 square miles. So there's a lot of things going into the lake, and there's also a lot of environmental change happening as well. So you see the picture on the right is of a fire that broke out right around Lake Merritt, actually back in March, I believe it was, so just a few months ago. And so there's a lot of things happening that affect the environmental makeup of Lake Merritt solely because it is in an urban environment, as well as factors like climate change and things like that. So Pinky, if you would go to the next slide, you can see some of these things that we're talking about. This yellow box is where Lake Merritt lives, and all of these different purple dots are groundwater threat sites. And so that's something that we want to be monitoring and thinking about. How does that impact the lake and vice versa? The next slide shows hazardous waste generators, which there are quite a few around the yellow box that has Lake Merritt. So another thing that we want to be thinking about and that we want to bring to the attention of the youth that we're working with is to think about how does that affect the ecosystem that we're looking at. So with that in mind, we have a couple of goals for this summer. So these are some students working at the same program that we'll be running at Lake Merritt this year. We did it last year at the Botanical Garden up at UC, which is a much more curated environment. So our goals for this program are to give students a different way to access science. So it's a way to solve problems, give them a different experience than maybe they may have had in classrooms. Where they'll be doing active hands-on science experiments and doing a lot of different ways of reaching science, as well as thinking about science in service of something greater. So what are we going to do with our data to actually make change? We're not having them collect all of this data and do all this stuff just because it's cool. I mean, it is cool, but we want to be able to do something with that. And the last piece that we have is actually a college prep piece, where students will get a lot of assistance in things like, how do you apply for college? How do you write a financial aid application? How do you write your essays for college. And so that we partner with the College and Career Center at UC Berkeley to bring those resources to students as well.
All right, so this program that we're doing this summer, we're serving participants are going to be rising 12th grade students from Northern California. We're really trying to focus on the Bay Area, but we have had some applicants that are from further out in Northern California, but do have connection to Oakland in some way. We have a large focus on recruiting students in OUSD, so Oakland Unified School District and West Contra Costa County Unified School District. And we're really trying to seek out students that have little to no research experience. I didn't start doing research, sorry, I have a cat that keeps trying to jump into my lap, so I feel like moved to the side a little bit. I didn't start doing research until I was in college, like environmental science, hands-on research. So we really want to give students that are younger than college age that experience, hands-on, immersive, really drawing on critical thinking. So this summer, very exciting, we are partnering with the GLOBE program. GLOBE stands for Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. It is sponsored by NASA, but also supported by NSF, NOAA, and I think there's a little logo in the bottom right corner, Department of the State. I didn't know that one until very recently. The GLOBE's mission is to increase awareness of individuals throughout the world about the global environment, contribute to increased scientific understanding of the Earth, and support improved student achievement in science and mathematics. And how do they do this? They have a bunch of things they call protocols that are they're created by like NOAA scientists, NASA scientists, and they're very, stringent is the wrong word, but they are fairly in-depth scientific tests. They focus on the four spheres of the Earth: soil, water, atmosphere, and soil, water, atmosphere, and biosphere is the last one. All of these protocols are hands-on, really drawing on that citizen science piece. They're supposed to be easy for anyone to do, even though they do require some levels of equipment. It's generally things that you can find or buy fairly cheaply or even make yourself. In addition to providing these protocols for anyone to use, like students, teachers, anybody that's interested in doing these protocols can do them. In addition to providing those resources, they also participants also upload their data up onto their website so that like researchers looking at a certain area can find like citizen science data that can be really useful for identifying patterns and things of the sort. We developed a kind of overarching case study question for going out to Lake Merritt. So like Colleen mentioned earlier, we're really asking our students to think about how does the urban environment surrounding Lake Merritt affect its ecology? So there's a bunch of different factors that go into Lake Merritt ecology, especially since it is in an urban environment. Like people are all around. We talked about the trash, talked about the sewage runoff. So there are a bunch of different things that could affect Lake Merritt ecology. So it's a big question, but we are going to put our students to work. We're working with them for 2 weeks, and we have a bunch of different protocols for them to complete or learn how to do, and then hopefully carry out a research experience on their own, which I'll talk about in a little bit, or Colleen will. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff on this list. We are putting our students to work this summer. They're going to be taking a look at soil, water, and atmosphere temperatures. They're also going to be taking a look at the pH of soil, water. You'll see that a lot of the soil and water ones are kind of analogous to each other. So there's like nitrates in water and also looking at nitrogen in the soil, as well as potassium, phosphorus. Infiltration, soil moisture, dissolved oxygen, we know is an important one at Lake Merritt and has been a ongoing I wouldn't say battle, but low dissolved oxygen has been, a bit of an issue in the lake. Taking a look at transparency as well, and a couple of atmospheric protocols like cloud cover, because urban heat islands are also a cause of the urban environment. So we want students to look at a bunch of different aspects of a tidal lagoon within an urban environment and how these different components could affect its ecology. So each area of interest, as I said in my slide, affects a component of the lake's ecology in some way. We're hoping that interns will analyze and interpret their field data, as well as pulling, I forgot to mention, but we will be pulling from the CEDN data as well, because looking at historical data, comparing to the data that you're finding like this week, next week, can really like tell you something about the environment. So looking at field data, identifying patterns, and constructing explanations based on what they're observing. So here are a couple of pictures of students working in the botanical gardens last year. As you can see, they're working on soil on the left. She has her trowel ready to go, working on some sort of hydro. I think they're looking at pH. They're using a pH meter to test the water pH in that second picture. And in the last picture, I imagine, I was not here last year to facilitate this, but I imagine that these students are discussing and trying to construct explanations based off of their data. So all of this, we're putting them to work. We're having them do a bunch of protocols, having them take a look at a bunch of data, and hopefully they will culminate into a student action project. I'll pass over to Colleen.
Yes, so the last thing they'll do is their student action project, where they will create a poster and tell the community about what they have found. So this is some students last year who took the data that they collected at the UC Botanical Garden and looked at it through the lens of why is California so vulnerable to wildfire regimes. So they took a very distant approach that they were probably like the biggest question of the group. So there's a lot of different ways that folks can look at their data and can make sense of it. So these students are an example of what we'll be doing. And you can actually get involved yourself. Pinky, if you could go to the next slide. Our interns who will be working at the lake this summer will be doing their own poster session on July 11th. And it's really great to have folks come and ask them questions, and so they can talk about their data and have a chance to interact with folks and really see the impact that they're having. So our poster session will be down at Lake Merritt. We will have a more specific space TBD, but July 11th is the date that they will be out there with their posters during the day. And we would love it if you would come along and check out what they've been doing all summer. So that is our program in a nutshell. Pinky and Kevin, was there anything that you wanted to mention? Anything else?
I just wanted to thank Katie et al. For inviting us to share some of what we do with a broader audience. And I would invite the audience to make as much noise as you can make with regard to, imploring school district folks, et cetera, imploring them to include more community-based research in the curriculum that they're using. This is something that we have evidence that suggests how effective it is. And Katie's been doing it for years, and we've all known how beneficial it can be, not only in terms of learning science, but sort of developing young people. So it only makes sense that we do more of it. And we've been trying to sort of beat this drum for many, many years. And with your help, we can finally get more of this into schools.
Thank you so much. We're going to definitely, Rotary Nature Center friends will definitely be spreading the word about all the wonderful work that you're doing. Are you able to stay a few minutes after 8 o'clock to answer some questions? Okay, so we're going to have a few minutes of end of program slides, and then we'll open up again a little bit after 8, like 8:02 or 8:03, so that people can unmute themselves and ask questions. So we want to thank you very much for coming, and we'll hope to see you in July. In July, we're going to hear from another environmental education program. We're going to hear from Audra Barrios, who is going to tell us about neighborhood snakes and her program that introduces children to wildlife in their urban environment. We also have additional programs coming up. On June 18th, we will have our third Saturday cleanup and spruce up of the shore of Lake Merritt, and you're welcome to drop by between 10 and 1 p.m. on June 18th. We'll start at the Sailboat Marsh area. On July 1st, that's when our next Lakeside Chat, number 20, will be held on Friday night. On July 2nd, we will have a table with participation and examples for the Snapshot Cal Coast program with the California Academy of Sciences. If you would like to come and see what coastal organisms, mostly invertebrates, are in the lake and how to capture them to track biodiversity with the iNaturalist app, stop by between 10 and 2 on July 2nd. I'd also want everyone to be knowledgeable about the Lake Merritt Institute's Clean Lake program. They meet at the boathouse on Saturday morning and on Tuesday morning, and you can make a call or just drop by to help take trash out of the lake. If you would like to see more of our programs, they're rebroadcast on the City of Oakland's KTOP Channel 10 TV. Go to the city website and search for KTOP and you'll find the schedule. It's on Sunday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We'd like to thank all the generous donors who have given money to Rotary Nature Center Friends, allowing us to carry on our program of on-site interpretation, stewardship activities. We work with school groups, with people who come by, and with other kinds of groups interested in lake ecology and stewardship of the lake. We'd like to thank Oakland Public Works recently for doing a wonderful job of restoring the benches here right outside the Rotary Nature Center, where people really love to sit and watch the bird islands. It's a very important place. If you enjoy what we do, please consider making a donation, help to keep us going and to expand our program. We want to thank our producer, Rob Lamone. David Wofford and I are the co-chairs. Kirsten Furman takes care of art and design. Dr. Janice Lord Walker, Betsy Schultz, Patty Donald, and many RNCF volunteers are involved in our work to support the Rotary Nature Center activities related to let me say this correctly, to support activities that bring people and nature together at Lake Merritt. We would like to open up our microphones and let people ask questions.
I just want to say thank you, Kevin, Pinky, and Colleen, for the work that you're doing. I almost have tears in my eyes because I love the science-based learning that you're going to be doing with the students in Oakland and West Contra Costa, and you're bringing them all together. And the work that you're doing right now, I'm a former teacher, and we're always teachers, so former is hard to say, but it's just the work that you're doing brings me so much joy. And the fact that you're making it really scientific based, so students in the inner city know that they can go out and do research and they can bring meaningful data and information back to the community. And the power that will give them is amazing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's my thank you time to you.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
I'd like to piggyback on, I've invited Kevin and his colleagues, I'm not sure if it was Colleen and Pinky at that time, because this was like 15 years ago, into my classroom at Oakland High School. Just so impressed with the science principles that were articulated and actually expressed by doing science. The students were hugely engaged, and the quality of the product was really impressive. And so just really excited to have you present to us tonight and share this message wider. I'm wondering about
Joe Campbell has raised his hand.
Excuse me, I don't want to get
Joe.
I would just like to say it's great to hear about what all these young people are doing and learning and how they're learning. And bravo for that and everyone who's supporting that. And I just love to hear if there's any events or resources or websites we can go to or that kind of thing to learn more about all of this. I'd love to hear any of that.
Colleen?
Definitely. I am pulling up our website now to give y'all a good link there. So that is our website. It will be undergoing an overhaul this fall, but there's a lot of different information on there. We would love it if you check that out. And in terms of events, so far, what we have planned out at the moment is our Lake Merritt work that you can come and say hey if you see us out there. And I think, Pinky, you have a group that is doing something at the city council, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to convince them to do it. But so there is a city council meeting that revolves around a lot of our lead work, since city council meetings are virtual. So I'm hoping to have a couple students at that city council meeting on Tuesday, the 7th at 1:30.
Also, you might want to direct them to the map that Arjun has created.
I can link to the mapping website. I met with Arjun today, and it's actually in a really good spot to share if y'all are open to that.
Great.
So talking about websites that we have, this is actually a website that one of our interns built. He's a very impressive young person. So let's give it a second to load, and then I'll share it in the chat. But this is a website that a student that has been working with eBay since around 2020 has created. It is more of a student-driven website. A lot of the text that you see was written by students. There's also a link to the map in that website as well. If you take a look at the icons in the top right corner, there should be like a little map icon, and also a chart on how to interpret your whatchamacallit, lead concentration in your soil. So that is the website. Me and the student have been working on this website for a couple of months. We would love feedback. So there should be a contact us page on that website. If you have any feedback at all, just like, I didn't understand this, please let us know, because we're starting to get into that portion of this website. There's also a Google form if you're interested in like collaborating with us, getting in contact. Many things in that website.
Fantastic.
Carol?
Yes, Carol has her hand raised. Yes. Carol, unmute.
So how do you recruit students for your programs in the summer?
Great question. Kevin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. As a result of working in various schools throughout the school year, we sort of create flyers, etc. We recruit from some of the schools that we work at during the school year. Also, Lawrence Hall of Science has a pool of students who are interested in volunteer activities. And so we recruit from that pool as well. We work with a number of community-based organizations that are also working in schools. So we recruit from that population, but those are principal ways of recruiting the youth.
Great, thanks.
We also have a few students who worked last year, who did the program last year, who are coming back this year as student leaders to kind of mentor the new students doing it this year. So that's another way that we're kind of getting the word out.
Also, we work with OUSD. They have like summer internship programs. We recruit from that population of students as well.
Great, thanks.
So I wanted to say, we'll send a post Zoom email out to everyone, and I've collected some of these links, and I'll send them to Kevin and Pinky and Colleen to say if there's anything they want to add or if I have things wrong. So hopefully we'll get that out pretty soon so that you'll be able to do things like maybe tune into the city council presentation or whatever that might be. We'll put that on our website at any rate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have a website as well, and you have followers, so we can pass on any events that we have pending. We can pass that information on to you as well.
Oh, yes.
so that we can make use of your network.
Absolutely. Well, we're very excited to be able to do that. Let's see. So I had a question about scale and how you address scale, which kind of was an issue that we encountered in our program, that people said, "Whoa, this is so good. Now everybody has to do it."
Yeah. Well, one way that we address it is by training others to do it. So over the years, we've had numerous EBAYS employees who then go on to do similar things elsewhere. And also now we're being more intentional in terms of developing a professional learning aspect of our work. Colleen has taken a leadership of that, and an example of that approach is are now starting to work with individuals in Flint, Michigan, as well as Cambridge, Massachusetts. So we're training people in those two locations to do similar work. So that's one way. That's probably the most effective way of scaling up that the program has been engaged in. Prior to that, I was pretty happy to keep it small because our staff is always, an intimate group, small group of people, and I felt that scaling it too fast might compromise the quality of the work that we do with the youth. But now I'm a little less hesitant to scale up, given that I have great colleagues like Colleen and Pinky to help make that a reality.
Wonderful. Let's see. Do you have any more questions coming in? Now's your chance.
Some questions are coming.
Janice, you're muted.
Janice,
you're muted.
I'll get to her here. Oh.
Trying to unmute. Okay. You talked about East Oakland, working with students from East Oakland. Are you working with students from West Oakland too? Because West Oakland is where we had all that air pollution and they have asthma and all of that. So are we working with them too?
Yeah, in the near future, we plan to work more with them. At one of the presentations that was presented by some students that we worked with in East Oakland, one of the city council members from West Oakland approached us and asked that very question, asked whether or not we intended to work more in West Oakland, and we certainly do.
Okay, good.
We're starting to make inroads there as well. Interestingly enough, the EPA was supposed to have done work in West Oakland, particularly dealing with the lead issue. But I haven't heard anything. I've pinged them a number of times, the person who was leading that, and haven't gotten any response over the years. Then the pandemic happened, so I'm not quite sure.
Keep pinging them, Kevin.
What's that? Keep pinging?
Keep pinging them.
Yeah.
Because remember when when we had the earthquake, and then they made a different pathway to get to West Oakland, and they didn't, the Mandela Parkway. And
yeah.
That is when we should be able to see some difference between the data before that and the data after that, because that was really important, that the community stay whole and not be separated once again. And there are many people who are doing environmental work in West Oakland, because that's where we were getting all that asthma with our students.
Sure, and there's a group called the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project.
That's right.
It's run by Margaret Gordon and Brian, I forget his last name. But in any case, we're close. We work closely with them. So as we begin to do this work in West Oakland, we'll certainly check in with them and make use of their resources and network as well.
Great.
But yeah, we're definitely interested in West Oakland. We know we had actually collected a couple of samples from West Oakland, from actually the home of the co-director of West Oakland environmental indicators project, and we found levels of lead that were through the roof. So we know that lead pollution is a problem in West Oakland as well.
So Revital had a question about salinity. Could you, what is it about salinity that you think is significant that we need to think about? Or what was your question based on? Are you there, Revital?
I don't think
she may have had to leave.
Here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I've worked with Revital and taken her courses a couple of times, and has done wonderful work at Lake Merritt and in the creeks, you know, around the in the Bay Area with students. Let's see.
He's gone.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna send her an email anyway because of I want to talk to her about the harmful algal bloom that we've had. Yeah.
I think Pinky did answer that question a little further down in the chat. So if you're going to email her, you could totally include that as well.
I will, for sure. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at finding stuff. Pinky, I'll go find what you said here.
The last comment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the chat.
Oh, there it is, of course. So if you're interested in doing globe, salinity, I have all the stuff for it. And we have done salinity measurements by the Nature Center throughout the year. You'll find them on the Globe website. Mm-hmm. So one of the cool things about Lake Merritt is that it is so variable in terms of seasonal changes. Yeah. And also, of course, the drought changes from year to year. We're in this, a mega drought right now, which is clearly visible in salinity and biodiversity and a number of other things. Very cool. Yeah. So, well, so are there other questions? Hands up. Let me look.
Nope.
No? Okay. Well, it's now 8:18 and it's been a very eventful week for all of us, I'm sure, with Janet's roof getting hit with a tree and so many things happening. And I want to thank all of you, Kevin, Colleen, and Pinky, for coming. It was a great show. And I'll be sending, we'll be communicating and send out an after show set of links to the people who are here, which hopefully to keep the ball rolling. And let's see what else to say. It's really been wonderful. And I look forward to what you will be doing for science education at Lake Merritt and in Oakland in general.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Thanks everybody for attending and listening.
Yeah, thanks for such a great chat.
Thank you.
Chat.
This was wonderful. And we do record them. So if anybody, we'll be able to send out the recording link in a few days that you can share it with people as well. Because I think, it was really great. You made a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, well, if there are no other questions or comments, I think we'll say goodnight for tonight. And thank everybody for coming and really appreciate it. Don't forget, we have a couple of events coming up before July 1st, which is our next Lakeside Chat. We'll talk about neighborhood snakes with Audra Barrios, who works in Richmond actually with schools and also in Oakland. Okay, so everybody have a great evening and a great weekend.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.